morning or good afternoon, everyone. We'll give it just a couple more minutes and then we'll get, or just another minute, and then we'll get started. We have a few more people trickle in. Okay, it's 1 minute after the hour, so I say we go ahead and get started. Todd, would you like to open us up?
Sure. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. I know we've covered a lot of ground in the last few months to get to this point. I want to thank Gunnar, Andrew, Scott, and all of you for sticking with us, but also, all the work that the staff's done to put this together, and yourselves for keeping up with the schedule. I know it's been a lot of meetings over the last few months. We're ready to kind of take the next step and move forward in the actual creation of the entity and the bylaws and get that submitted to EDA for their review and we hope and assume approval. So Gunnar, I'll let you take it over.
Great, thank you. I did get a comment about my volume. Is this better?
You can go a little more, it'd be good.
Okay, thank you. I'll try this. Hopefully this gets me. If you're having trouble hearing, please speak up and I'll be sure to adjust accordingly. Well, thanks again to everybody for all your participation, getting us to this point. We have a packed agenda today, but it is a reflection of all of the work that has come before us. So I don't think anything in here is going to be new per se. Yeah. The first item, I believe, is just approval of the agenda. And just so you know, I'm going to run the meeting here until we have a slate of officers, and we'll pass it over to the chair. So can we start with a motion to approve the agenda?
This is Clyde Evans, so moved.
Rachel Gokin, I'll second.
Scott.
Record.
It was Clyde and Rachel. Okay, thank you. Next up, just want to touch base briefly on the timeline. As you know, the phase 1 was to gather support. We have that across the board. Phase 2 is the creation of the entity, and we are at the very last stages of phase 2. And by tomorrow, we'll be into phase 3. And if all goes according to plan, we could be fully operational by early next calendar year. Just want to reiterate all the steps that have been taken over the summer to get us here, culminating today where we're going to review and hopefully approve bylaws, sets, the designation application form, and then also the IRS submission. We'll go through all those today. And one note that I wanted to say is that we did receive the letter of state concurrence from the governor's office. I want to give a thanks to the folks at IEDA for facilitating that ask, as well as to the Greater Green Partnership. Ryan, thank you for helping to make those introductions and open the door that made that go very smoothly. This was one of those pieces that was out of our direct control, but was required. And so it felt really good to get that in on our timeline. Okay, so we are ready, if all the actions are approved today, to submit our EDD designation application tomorrow. And then we're going to wait. Remember, if you recall, I've said this a few times now, it could be 2 to 3 months before we get approval. And at that point, we can apply for the partnership program, which is the annual grant. And then we're going to be using that time to meet with local jurisdictions about becoming potential members. This also coincides with their budget cycles. Okay, that's it for the timeline. We'll jump into the articles of incorporation. This was reviewed with you at our last meeting. We were the said steering committee. Nothing has changed since then, just the fact that it has happened. It was filed on August 11th with the Secretary of State as a 504 nonprofit as discussed under the name Mid-Iowa Planning Alliance for Community Development, and did include language for the IRS designation, and Todd was the incorporator. So with that, staff recommends approval.
This is Rachel. I'll make a recommendation to approve.
This is Jeff Davidson. I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Actually, I think I'm gonna play a trick from our tech committee and just, if anyone objects, if no one objects, then it'll be considered approved. That's easier for virtual, so we'll do that going forward. So I'd like to ask for any objections. Hearing none, we'll consider that approved. Do I need to ask for abstentions? Okay, any abstentions?
This is Leanne Harder. I just emailed you, Gunner. I still have to abstain from all votes today.
Thank you. Okay, next up, report and vote on bylaws. I'll give you the brief summary here. This is almost exclusively the same as you heard last month with one change, and then I'll ask Scott to jump in with any corrections or additions. So as a recall, membership is eligible for all jurisdictions in the 7-county region. There are 89 cities in 7 counties that would qualify. You can join at any time, but effective July 1 of 23, joining members would pay 1 year's worth of back dues. This is intended to prevent jurisdictions from joining at the last minute, reap benefits without having paid into the organization. Leaving is an option at any time, but would still have to pay for dues for the remainder of the year. Board of directors, we're saying 1 per city and 1 per county, plus 2 private reps from each county for a total of 14 maximum to be appointed by members from within that county, as well as 1 representative each from Iowa State, DMAC, and Greater Mine Partnership. That brings us to a maximum of 125. That's a pretty large board, which is why we'll talk about exec committee in just a second. Meetings, we're saying a minimum of 1 per year, likely in May, and the term until a successor is appointed or upon death, resignation, or removal. Notable responsibilities here are budgets, bylaws, sets, contract authority, over 25K. 25K is the number that we shared with you last time, and I have an asterisk next to it because that's the point where we have the change proposed. I'll get to that in a second. Here's the executive committee. Maximum 21 representatives, 2 city or county reps from within each city for 14, 1 private rep from within each county. Meetings at least every other month, and then again, successor or a term lasts until an successor is appointed or upon death, resignation, removal. And again, on responsibilities, this is really the body that does the day-to-day decision-making on behalf of the board. And we had said last time the contract authority was up to 25K. This is again have an asterisk because we are proposing change here. It does recommend officers, chair, vice chair, secretary, treasurer. These would be elected from the executive committee, or in our case today, the board, and elected by, so from within the executive committee and by the executive committee. You can hold more than 1 officer position, and again, term is until a successor is chosen. Okay, so that was what was distributed at our meeting last month. We received 0 comments. Since then, neither staff here nor our legal counsel have received any. Staff is recommending 1 revision, and that is to increase the contract authority of the executive committee from 25,000 to 50,000. And the intent behind that is to simplify the process of accepting contracts with member governments without needing to convene a full board meeting. So an example of this might be if a member government were to contract with us to administer a CDBG grant, that might be a $30,000 contract. So we just thought it was a smart thing to do to just increase that to 50,000. I will note here that bylaws can be updated in the future if for some reason the board sees it differently. So that is an overview of bylaws. Scott, please feel free to jump in if you have anything to add.
I think you hit all the highlights.
Okay, staff recommends approval. Any questions, comments?
This is Alex Lynch. I'd make a motion to approve.
This is Clyde Evans. I'll second.
Thank you. I'll look for any nays. And then does anyone object? Or excuse me, anyone else abstain? Hearing none, we'll consider this approved. Now we'll do a report and vote on officers. In an email communication to the steering committee, we asked for interested parties, and we heard from 4 people. And so we reached back out and asked for their willingness to serve in the roles as displayed here, with the chair being Brenda Dreyer, vice chair Clyde Evans, secretary Charlie Dissel, and treasurer Carrie Cruz. I will open up to the floor for questions, comments. Staff recommends approval.
This is Rachel Gokin. I'll make a motion to approve the officer slate.
Brian, we make yours a second.
This is Alex Lynch. I'll second that.
Okay, are there any objections? Any additional abstentions? Hearing none, we'll consider this motion passed. Congratulations to our officers, and thank you very much for your willingness to serve. And at this point, I'm going to ask our chair, Brenda, to take over the facilitation of the meeting.
Good afternoon, all. Let's move to item number 7 on the agenda. Report and vote regarding the IRS designation submission. Gunnar, will you describe this further? I'd refer people to page 6 in your packet.
This is pretty basic. We're just asking for the board's blessing to proceed with an application to the IRS seeking designation of federal tax ID to be done by our legal counsel. And staff does recommend approval.
So we have a recommendation. Any motions from the floor?
This is Jeff Davidson. I'll move to approve.
This is Carrie Cruz. I'll second.
Are there any nays? Any wishing to abstain from the vote? Here's that motion passes. Let's move to item number 8 on our agendas. And this is a report and vote regarding the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy, the CEDS document. Again, I'll turn it over to Gunnar, refer you to page 7 in your board packet.
Thank you. We reviewed this as a draft document at our meeting in August, and since that time, we published it on our website on August 30th. This is for a required 30-day public comment period, which ended on September 2nd. We publicized this with our email newsletter as well through our steering committee. We did receive a couple of comments, which we have addressed and we'll go over in a moment. We also held a public meeting on August 24th, and we had 0 attendees. So the comments and updates that we want to share are, one was, pretty basic stuff, mismatched font on page 12. We made sure to correct that. And then we had a suggestion to mention our collaborating with other EDDs and Iowa State University as needed. So we thought that was a great suggestion and added that in the moving forward page on page 796. And then we also just did a couple of other updates. We added a photo of an Urbandale interchange on page 70. We also added language on the specific ways that MIPA can help member governments advance these goals, such as grant writing administration on page 96. This will be helpful in the future as we're working with the public partnership program application. We also want to note that there was additional review. We did ask that the Iowa Economic Development Authority review it, and they gave us no comments. And the state letter of concurrence from the governor's office does say that the state aligns or concurs with the SEDS and that it aligns with the state's economic development strategies. And lastly, we did send a draft to the EDA staff, and what their response back to us was, it appears you're on the right path. So good signs from them. And I also want to note that we are already seeing some value with this in the draft form. The grant applications that some of our members are pursuing right now from the American Rescue Plan does ask if we have a SEDS, and even though it's not approved, we can check that box and point to it as a regional document showing regional priorities. Iowa State is using that. They were, Brenda knows this better than I do, but apparently they were looking for a SEDS and she was able to provide them with one. And then DMAC would also potentially be able to benefit from that if they go after a grant. That's it for the changes. Like I said, it is pretty much as you saw it last month. Staff recommends approval.
We've received a recommendation. Do I have a motion?
This is Clyde Evans, so moved.
Thank you, Clyde. Do we have a second?
Rachel Gokin, I'll second.
Thank you, Rachel. Any nays? Any members wishing to abstain from the SEDS vote? Congratulations. I think we have a motion to proceed on the SEDS document, everyone. So let's move to item 9. Report and vote on the application for EDD designation. I direct your attention to page 8 in your board packet. Gunnar will give us a report on the application submission.
Thank you. So this is the document that pulls together all the different pieces that we've been working on over the past year. As you can see, we have several required elements. This was spelled out to us in a memo from EDA saying these are the things we're going to need to check. So the elements are on the left and the status is on the right. And as you can see, it's either done or waiting for signature or your approval, which is to say everything is ready to go. It's a 177-page document, so I'm not going to go through it here, but I did send it to you by email last week and would welcome any questions or thoughts that you would have on it. Otherwise, staff recommends approval.
This is Jeff Davidson. Motion to approve.
Brian Crow, I would second.
Brian Crow, who's in the MBO offices with us, is seconding that. With the motion a second, this would be our time. Any further comments we wish to make about the application? Any questions for the staff? Are there any nays to the motion? Any wishing to abstain from the vote? We have a positive approval to proceed with submitting the application. So
Great.
again, a couple really big things as we move this organization forward. Let's move to number 10. This would be the report on the American Rescue Plan grant opportunities, and page 9. And Andrew, we'll have you cover this topic for us today.
Great. Thank you, everyone. So just as a quick recap, wanted to go over what we've done to date. So we sent an email newsletter regarding just all the funding opportunities that became available the end of July, early August, as well as having an informational session that we had on August 5th for people within the region to come and listen to a lot of the information that the federal government had put out, hopefully distilled down to a little more granular way of taking the information. So we had 30 people attend. We recorded and published it. We put it on the website. We've also had separate conversations with those who submitted information to us or reached out with questions. We've had several jurisdictions show a lot of interest. We also collected potential projects. we had 21 projects submitted to us. Most of those have been reviewed with EDA staff. That was done on August 24th. We've taken that response. I believe we've contacted all jurisdictions that submitted projects to us, and we relayed the information back to them. And just want to summarize that we have about 6 to 10 grant applications so far that EDA staff has indicated they see as a potential possibility. Obviously, we don't know with the rest of the region how those projects are going to look, but EDA staff has said that many 6 to 10 of them are fundable, I guess. So with that, I have taken questions anyone has on just the outreach for potential projects. I will note before I guess I close out real quick that if you do have a project that have not been submitted to us yet, I highly recommend that you get a hold of me as soon as possible. With a lot of this funding, it is the sooner to apply, the better. And so the more quickly we can move a project application forward, the better. So please get a hold of me if you are considering potential projects in the future.
I would tell you, if you sat through the initial EDA webinar, you were very grateful for Andrew's version of the informational session on August 5th. So if you haven't had a chance to jump on the website and actually take a look at that recorded session, I'd encourage you to do so. So I felt like it was helped out greatly, at least in my understanding of the programming, and I know others have said that as well. Are there other questions for Andrew as it relates to the EDA opportunities that are part of the American Rescue Plan?
Actually, we did get a quick question in the chat,
Okay.
so I'll go ahead and address that. Rachel sent a question that asked if there was a deadline for funding, and that's kind of a loaded question, but for projects that are likely to be submitted by jurisdictions, those are funded through the district level. So the district has set 2 tentative deadlines to review applications. So you're looking at the end of September, which is quickly approaching, and the end of December. And so those are the 2 project deadlines. I don't think they put any more out because I believe they anticipate awarding all the funding by the end of December. So again, highlighting sooner the better for these projects. Just so please get a hold of me if you have further questions or comments.
Andrew, if you had distill why those 11 to 15 projects aren't going to be eligible, what was the distilled cited reason why those projects were involved?
EDA with this, we say $3 billion, but in reality it's limited funding pot, the way they've split it out. Really wants to emphasize large scale regional, but when I say regional, multi-state projects, when you're looking at the tourist and opportunities part of the grant. And so you really want to have a project that's going to be more than just a region, but also has an economic development impact as well. So if you can make that argument, that's what they're looking to fund. And so some of those other projects just didn't rise to that threshold and or were just not something that would be interested, EDA interested in funding, because they are looking to fund specific things and those just weren't it.
If I could add on to that, I think we're going to get better at this as a region. And for example, we had a couple of projects that, as initially discussed, were kind of not very fundable. But on second look, when we looked at it more closely, they changed what it was they were asking for and then brought us some additional partners. And it changed the equation a lot to take it from a project that was probably not going to get any money to one that had a good chance of it. So I think the jurisdictions will become more savvy in what they ask for and how they tie it to economic development. And I think we'll be better positioned to help advise for that sort of stuff.
And what's really helpful about this process as well is that EDA, they don't know of a lot of projects in Central Iowa just because we've never done this really on a regional level before. And I think they're very excited about knowing about a lot of these projects because they want, their words not mine, they want to fund good projects, and knowing about good projects is half the battle. And this process, if not funded by the end of December, if it's a good project, they're going to try to find funding for it. And that's really the key benefit of this, is getting these on the staff's radar and have them helping and looking for money for those projects that don't end up getting funded. It's not all.
Other questions for Andrew? We'll continue to keep the group updated as projects roll through the two tranches.
Yes.
Is that what they want?
Yep.
2 tranches, the end of September and the end of December. So I bring your attention to page 10, item 11 on the agenda, which is future meeting dates. Let's have a conversation about that. So we're now the board of directors. Help me, the ideal schedule. Now we're talking for the exec, correct?
Well,
Because the
as
full
of right
board
now,
would be
we
May.
have,
Yeah,
right now, we have an interim board and we don't have an executive committee. If we so chose, we could choose an executive committee that is a subset. We could choose an executive committee that's the whole. You recall that, right? The phase that we're going into right now is we're out talking to jurisdictions, start working some applications. So
we don't have that.
we have some things going on, but not a ton of things going on. One possible solution would be to, for the foreseeable future anyway, is to adopt the executive committee schedule, which is every other month. I don't have a strong opinion on these, but just throw that out there as a starting point.
Subscribers.
Correct.
Say that again.
Subscribers, right? To have
Actual members.
Yeah, so we're the interim board, and we did that because we needed to have a board to start, and you're able to make all these things happen for our designation application. We'll have a permanent board established as members are committed, and we start in the partnership program, and we start being fully functional. So we're looking at being in interim board status through January, at least, and possibly through the end of March, potentially. It really is going to depend on how fast the EDA moves with our request, and then how quickly we can do that partnership program.
I would throw it out there that I think it would be helpful if we met in November before the holidays, just so we can have an understanding about how some of those meetings are going across the region, and figuring out if there's things that the interim board needs to be doing to be supportive and getting you in front of jurisdictions. So I guess I would toss out a November meeting time.
Should we do a November meeting at the same date and time that we had been doing, which I believe was 10 o'clock on the first Tuesdays? Is that what I think that's what we were doing.
Any concerns with what would be the first Tuesday in November? That would be actually November 1st.
We've got November 2nd, election day.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry, election is correct. Any concerns with November 2nd at 10 o'clock?
I'll get an invitation out to everybody, and then I'll get an invitation out to anybody, and then we can schedule our next meeting at that time.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So November 2nd, 10 o'clock. Is there any other business items of interest from the interim board? I think hearing no other comments or items of interest, that will adjourn today's meeting. So thank you for your time today. Some important work was done. See you, or actually see you in person or virtually November 2nd.
Thank you.
Yes, thanks, everyone. Appreciate your time.
Oh, it's good to see you. I don't know that I've seen you since you took your leave.
Wow, I think you were still up in Northern Iowa.
Well, you know, I've been here 4.5 years, believe it or not. You know,
Time flies.
4.5 years of trying to keep my boss in line.
How's it going?